2 or 3 bird feeders in your garden. The birds will come around to eat the seed or the suet or whatever you're putting out, and they almost always stick around to eat a few bugs as well. I was watching a mockingbird in my garden. I was working in my garden the day before yesterday, day off, and I don't know what that guy was getting, probably little grasshoppers, but man, he was just having a feast. And plus it's fun. The things that I see in my garden, saw a blue grosbeak last year, first one I'd ever seen in the garden. The little red tanagers are just incredibly colorful birds. It's a lot of fun, and they actually do a lot of good in the garden, eating things like that. If you can put up with the noise, believe it or not, guineas are great insect controllers. Much better than chickens, because chickens scratch everything up and destroy the plants. The guineas don't do much scratching, but they'll sure eat a lot of bugs, and they'll sure let you know if there's a snake around. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Yes? Spinosad?
Is that detrimental to honeybees to spray the plant?
Spray it on. It doesn't seem to have much effect on the bees. I would never spray it directly on them, but having the residue on the plant, that seems to bother.
Okay, good. I was worried that I'd be killing my benefit.
No, not. Somebody brought up, you brought up Scott Ogden's book. If you want a good book on vegetable gardening, it also has a lot on fruit trees and nut trees. This is the book that Howard Garrett and Malcolm Beck put together. I consider this kind of the Bible for vegetable gardening.
Very good.
And it's a great thing to have if you want a good reference source. Another product that I always have to recommend, although I always hate to do so, Super Thrive. It's just, well, world champion, activator, reviver, transplanter, extra grower since 1940, $5,000 guaranteed to me, blah, 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 used by the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the only reason we won World War II, on and on and on. But it works. It works. If you ever have plants in shock or stress, this stuff really does work well against it. Now, I don't know if Dr. Thompson has passed away. I'm going to be very disappointed if he has. The man that makes this is weird as his product. And the first time I ever saw him was probably 35 years ago at a nurseryman show, and he's literally chasing people down the aisle. Have you tried my Super Thrive? No nursery can survive without Super Thrive. This was 35, 40 years ago, and the guy looked like he was about 90 years old. Last time I saw Dr. Thompson was about 3 years ago. Looked like he was about 135 years old, running down the aisle at the TNLA show. Have you tried Super Thrive? I don't know whether he was drinking it or whatever he was doing. But this stuff really, I don't know. I'm not to that point. Maybe one of these days I'll be sampling it to see. Yes, ma'am. Anytime something appears to be stressed is when I think it really does work wonders. It's kind of like a vitamin supplement. It's never going to hurt anything. It hurts when you look at the price of it, especially if you buy it by the quart like I do. But it's never going to hurt anything. But if you've ever got plants that are stressed or shocky for any reason, if you've got plants with root problems, spray it on the foliage because the roots are damaged and can't take it up. Otherwise, just use it as a drench on the pots and things. My friends, the Fanick boys, Mark and Mike, bring a lot of all the burlap mountain laurels and put them in pots. He told me they used to lose about 40% of them. Mountain laurels are tough to transplant. He said about 40% of them would die. Got them to mixing this up and soaking the plants when they transplant them. Saw Mike the other day. He said nowadays they lose about 1 out of 100 trees. And so this stuff is wonderful. But sometime, I'll make Patrick save a box sometime and bring it out and let you read it. The cornerstone of thousands of successful nurseries. Report any insult to your intelligence by products claiming to be like Super Thrive. There is nothing like Super Thrive. Anyway, all this printed material.
Do you dilute it and then?
Yeah, like a capful per gallon. The bottle says a drop per gallon. I use a capful per gallon. Bill wanted to talk about corn. I guess the most important thing I will tell you about corn is, number one, don't buy any of this genetically modified stuff, Starlink and all that stuff. I could spend a long time telling you about everything's wrong with Frankenfood. But if you're going to plant corn in the home garden, probably the most important thing for you to know is do not plant a long row of corn. Plant several short rows side by side. because corn is pollinated as the pollen falls out of the tassels and down onto the ears. And if you've got one long row, you'll get very poor pollination, and if you get ears set, when you peel them back, there are only a few kernels here and there on them. You want to plant your corn fairly densely, where if the wind's blowing from the east, it's blowing it over this way, from the west, it's blowing it over this way, north, south, whatever else. You want your corn in a clump, not in a one long or two long rows. You get much, much better results. But corn, unless you're going to grow something really unusual, like the genetic corn, just for decorative purposes in the fall, whether you're going to grow popcorn, everybody ought to grow popcorn at least once for your kids or whatever else. It's just fun to do. But unless you've got a lot of room, corn is a waste of time. Now, if you're a big farmer and you get the government subsidy for ethanol and you're willing to use 2 gallons of diesel to produce 1 gallon of ethanol, don't get me started on what a stupid idea ethanol is. But now, not all ethanol is stupid. There is a form of ethanol which is, I won't say highly beneficial, but is widely used. The most pure form is known as Everclear, but you know, it's more commonly found in other things. That's ethanol. Mild organic chemistry professor used to distinguish between ethanol and methanol, which is the poisonous wood alcohol. He called ethanol the alcohol of temporary blindness and methanol the alcohol of permanent blindness. Anyway, but ethanol is a fuel. No, don't get me started there.
Remember that guy, Tim, was his name that called you?
Oh, the guy that told me I must have a Charlie horse in my brain?
Well, yeah, about ethanol. The other day I was watching on the History Channel, and they said, you know what the fuel they use to produce coal, which is the big polluter of our
sure,
water.
absolutely.
And they're using, like you said, 3 gallons of water for 1 gallon of...
And about 2 gallons of diesel. You know, I try to be very nice to people
well, I
in
understood
general.
where you were.
And I could tell you what I wanted to say so badly to him was I would love to have a battle of wits with you, but I refuse to duel with an unarmed person. Yeah, maybe some of you guys heard of this guy, but he was unarmed in the wit department. Yes, sir.
I used to farm down in the valley, and in my garden down there especially, I grow field corn, and I plant these Kentucky Wonder Beans beside it, and they climb that, and one complements the other.
Exactly. The legumes are producing the nitrogen, the corn's using it up. Yeah, nothing wrong with corn if you've got a big garden, but, you know, very few of us have a big enough garden, in my opinion, to justify it.
That's so sweet.
Sweet, oh, I know, but, you know, 10,000 raccoons can't be wrong.
GS90, it grows great in my garden, and I picked probably, I got about 100 ears out of my garden last year. Wow. But that's a very good corn if you want to plant sweet corn. It's a white, yellow and white kernel.
Better than Country Gentleman? I used to always plant Country Gentleman.
I don't know, I like it.
Yes, ma'am.
Is diatomaceous earth good for keeping the bugs off any of the plants overall?
Good question. On diatomaceous earth is an abrasive that kills insects by literally cutting their exoskeleton to where they dehydrate and die. I think it's useful if you're shaking it out over a fire ant mound, but in general, I've not found enough insect problems to really justify the price of using it in the garden. And by the way, if anybody's fighting fire ants, okay, we don't have any of it out here. Greenlight's product they call fire ant bait with conserve. Bacterial product, 100% safe for to use in the garden. Well, day before yesterday, I was just scattering it through my garden in the 2 or 3 fire ant mounds I found. I just go put a couple of tablespoons on top of the mound without disturbing the mound. For me, the mounds were always dead the next day. The directions say it takes a week to kill, but I've never found that I didn't kill them out completely in 24 hours. It is safe enough. I had somebody call me one time and ask if they could use it around chickens, because chickens eat everything. So I called the manufacturer and they said no problem.
What is it again?
It's the active ingredient is spinosad. Greenlight sells it under the name of Fire Ant Killer with Conserve, C-O-N-S-E-R-V-E. Fertilome makes it under the name of Come and Get It. I just like the Greenlight.